The Artemis campaign is to return humans to the moon and establish a long term presence on the lunar surface before going to Mars. Four astronauts, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen, will plan to travel about 685,000 miles around the moon and set the record for the farthest distance humans have flown away from the Earth. During that time, they are going to test the life support systems of the Orion spacecraft. Their own health will be tested and studied as well to see how the body reacts to deep space. To learn more about that, we talked to Dr. Stephen Platts, the chief scientist of NASA's Human Research Program. So, Dr. Platts, Artemis II is a 10-day test flight. What are the main goals of this test flight and what will we learn?
From an agency standpoint, one of the main things they're looking for is imagery. So we'll be taking lots of pictures, scoping out landing locations for future missions, making sure there's terrain near where we want to land that doesn't have a lot of craters, isn't too hilly, because that's difficult to land in. We want to make it as easy as possible. But we want to be near some of these craters that have shadows, because that's where the water is. And so looking for those ideal locations. From other science, I'm part of the Human Research Program, so we're looking at how the immune system functions in space, how radiation is affecting the human body, and also other things like the cardiovascular system, the eyeball, the brain, all the different parts of the body and how they respond to a mission like this.
So, as you mentioned, you are the chief scientist of the Human Research Program, which, just for our viewers, it uses research to develop methods to protect the health and performance of astronauts in space. Correct? And so,
Yes, absolutely.
thank you. Can you please tell us some of those health hazards that astronauts could face? And is it different going to deep space versus the space station, stuff like that?
Great question. So we've identified 5 hazards to the human body, and because we're NASA, we have to give it an acronym, right? So our acronym is RIDGE. So radiation, isolation, distance from Earth, gravity, and then the enclosed environment. So all those things create different hazards and different risks to the human body. The difference between low Earth orbit and deep space really is that in low Earth orbit, the crew are protected by the magnetic field, and it prevents some of the radiation exposure that you would expect. Deep space, you're going to get more of that galactic cosmic ray radiation that you may have heard about on some TV shows and movies and things like that. But that's one of the primary hazards that's different. Another one is the isolation aspect. And so the International Space Station is quite large. And so when you do the internal space, it's like a 6-bedroom home. So, if you need to get away from your colleagues and have a little alone time, you can do that. For the Artemis missions, it's about the size of a camper van. And so a lot smaller, a lot more difficult, harder to do exercise, harder to do a lot of things. And that creates a lot of stress on the human body and the human mind. And that stress is one of the things that's also quite different.
So do these astronauts then that are going up on Artemis 2, do they have to train differently to protect their health when they're up there on this mission?
The training is very similar, but yes, there's a lot more work on the team and how they're going to be functioning, and they train to operate in their environment. So they're used to that smaller space. They're used to how they're going to have to exercise. Will be quite different from the International Space Station, but still exercising. And so that's all built into these scenarios. Remember, they've been training for a long time for the mission.
And would you mind going into more detail about how NASA is going to protect these astronauts from the radiation?
Yes, and so the radiation exposure, because it's a short duration mission, is not one of our primary concerns, although it will be different. And so what we're looking for is how those galactic cosmic rays are different in deep space than they are when they're protected in the Earth's magnetic sphere. And we're looking at the cells, and we have an experiment called Avatar that's going up that is looking at cells that have been taken from the astronauts and put onto a chip, and that chip functions like the bone marrow. And from there, we'll be studying how the radiation affects those individual cells, because the bone marrow, very, very sensitive to radiation. In fact, when we have patients here on Earth who are undergoing chemotherapy, that's one of the main targets, right? And so we'll be looking at that chip and then relating how the cells respond on that chip to how the actual astronauts respond. Very, very exciting stuff. It's future of medicine right there.
That's really cool. And are these astronauts, are they required to sign up for the human health studies?
No, all research studies are 100% completely voluntary. So what we do is about a year, year and a half before the mission, we talk to the astronauts and we explain each individual experiment, and they're allowed to pick and choose which ones they're interested in.
That's really cool. Okay, and I was wondering also if you do you know more about the moon base? It was just recently announced that we're going to do a moon base. Can you give us more information on that?
I know about as much as you do from the press releases, but it's going to be gradual. We'll be doing it in stages, small at first, shorter duration, and then we will increase duration as well as size. And one of the ultimate goals is that one of the facilities that will be available will be for research. So we'll be able to do research on the lunar surface. Mind-boggling how exciting that is for us. And so we're really looking forward to that opportunity.
Is that gonna change your job at all since that would be another long duration, like, health on the moon? Like, are your studies and your research going to change with that?
I don't know that they'd change, but they would definitely expand. We'd be doing more and more work there. Right now, we do work all over the place. So we have work in Antarctica. We do a lot of work here on Earth when we can because it's a lot cheaper than space flight. But International Space Station, parabolic space flights, these CLIPS modules that you may have heard about, all the different venues and opportunities for research we take advantage of. So for us, the moon is another opportunity and another place where we can do our research so that we can keep the astronauts safe and healthy.
Would you mind telling us your story? How does one become a chief scientist of the human research program?
Wow. So how long do you have? I started out, I got my undergrad degree at the University of Massachusetts. And then I went to work for a pharmaceutical company while I figured out what I wanted to do. Decided I really wanted to go back to school because I didn't like people telling me what to do. I really wanted to be the one suggesting what research should be done. So then I went back to school at Texas A&M and got my PhD. And as I was doing my postdoc at the University of Virginia, I was trying to figure out what kind of a scientist I wanted to be. And NASA needed a vascular physiologist for a new series of experiments that they were planning. I saw that and said, wow, that's a unique opportunity. So let's check into that. I got that job, and that was 23 years ago.
It's a fascinating stuff, and so I was just wondering, with all that you've been through too, what are you most looking forward to? What are you most excited about when it comes to Artemis II?
I'm really excited to learn how the astronauts respond to that type of mission, right? So we've been doing low Earth orbit for a long time. And before that, I worked on the shuttle as well. But again, that was orbital. And so getting outside of the orbit and approaching the moon and eventually landing on the moon, just incredibly exciting. I can't tell you how exciting it really is, but seeing how the body responds to being on that lunar surface for an extended duration, more than just a day or two or three, but weeks and months. Um, that part is just fascinating for the physiology, right? So we're used to 1G. We grew up in 1G. We've been in microgravity for a long time, low Earth orbit, but now being exposed to 1/6G, how is that going to affect the human body? What is it going to do to the bones? What's it going to do to the cardiovascular system? Just that long-term exposure is just a fascinating scientific question, as well as being really important to keeping the astronauts safe and healthy.
And do you already have a plan? Your team, is there an extensive plan in place already for also the next part of that mission, which is going to Mars? Do you already have a plan with your team about how to study for the human health in on Mars?
Absolutely. And it's really important that we do that now because the best place to test a lot of our countermeasures, which is what we call treatments, is on the International Space Station. and we only have a few years left of the International Space Station. So we have to do Mars work now so that we can test it in that microgravity environment. So we've been doing work directed towards Mars for quite a few years, and we will continue. We see the moon as one of the stepping stones for getting us to Mars. If we can understand how everything happens on the moon, that will give us a lot more information and better modeling for Mars.
Thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything else you would like to add before we go?
No, I think I've said how excited we are quite a few times, so I don't want to belabor that point, but yeah, we're really excited.
We're really excited too. So, Dr. Platts, thank you so much for your time and best of luck with this, the moon, and eventually to Mars.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.